Hello, this is the Provoked Prawn, and this is the Razer DeathAdder V3 Hyperspeed, which is another addition to the DeathAdder lineup that sits somewhere in the middle, is more affordable than the DeathAdder V3 Pro, and therefore more accessible, but still has some pretty awesome features to it that include up to 100 hours of battery life. And I can tell you that the battery life has been insane during my tests as well. It's been great. It also uses Razer optical Gen 3 switches and has a Focus X 26000 DPI optical sensor, which has a really interesting dynamic resolution, which we'll get to later on. Now, this mouse has some other things that you may notice. I'm going to show you a side-by-side comparison with the V3 Pro in a minute, because it has bigger feet, for example. It also has a little dock for the dongle on the underside for your convenience. And naturally, that dongle is used for the wireless connectivity when connected to your PC to give you a good solid signal and a fast response from it. This is an interesting DeathAdder mouse. Ever so slightly subtle changes to it, including those larger feet, and some ergonomic changes. It's also been worked on with esports pros to give a better overall experience. I personally thought the DeathAdder V3 Pro was already pretty awesome, but this thing is nicer in some ways and also has a ridiculous battery life and is more affordable. So there's a lot of things that are already ticking the right boxes there. However, it only has 1000 Hz maximum polling rate unless you buy the Hyperspeed dongle separately, where you can put it up to 8000 Hz. So it's not quite as fancy, but you are saving quite a bit of money with this model. You'll see it has that nice ergonomic shape to it still, nice clicky satisfying button presses, and obviously makes use of Razer's optical switches, which means you've got a 0.2 millisecond actuation and no problems with debounce issues either. Obviously, conveniently in the package, you have this little adapter so you can keep the dongle close to the mouse if you need to, and then plug in the mouse for charging when you need to as well, so you can easily do that. I haven't had any problems with the signal though. I've used this on a couple of different PCs and I've not had any problems there. One thing I will note though is that the cable included with the mouse is a bit rubbish. It's a kind of rubbery one, it's heavy, it's awkward, it's not great to use if you do have to plug in and charge. It's not like the other cables included with the DeathAdder V3 Pro, for example, which is a lot more flexible and lightweight. This is one of the areas where Razer's clearly cheaped out in order to cut costs, and that's a downside and a negative. However, I didn't find that I had to plug it in that often, very rarely in fact, and that is definitely one of the big selling points for this mouse in my mind. You rarely have to plug it in. It's got great signal, it's lightweight, it's very capable and satisfying to use. It's also got a very comfortable shape to it. As you'll see in a minute, I'll show you the shape of my hand and how it fits. If you use a palm grip like I do or a claw grip, you should find it's perfectly fine unless you've got massive hands, because it has been shortened, and I'll show you what I mean by that in a little while. On the underside is a DPI switching button, and then there's an indicator on top to let you know it's got a connection to the PC, and then to show you at a glance your DPI levels, so you can switch between various levels on there. Obviously, you can adjust this within Razer's Synapse software, but out of the box, that's how that's set up. The mouse itself comes in at a mere 54 grams for me. Razer says 55, so there may be a little bit of variance in there, but that makes it very lightweight. And even with the dongle in the underside, it's still pretty lightweight here at 54, 55 grams. So about there. That is quite a bit lighter than the V3 Pro. So you can see that's 64 grams. So you're nearly 10 grams lighter there as well. So Razer's shed some weight from the body without sacrificing battery life, which is pretty impressive. It has, however, made some changes to it. For example, it is apparently 0.27% larger and wider, but 23% smaller and lower. So it's shorter front to back and sits lower off the desk. Now, I personally find that the V3 Pro is the more comfortable out of the two because of this, but it's obviously going to vary depending on whether you've got larger hands or whether you prefer your mouse to be on the larger side. You will notice that the V3 Pro also comes with grip tape, which is something that is lacking from the Hyperspeed version, so you are making a sacrifice there. However, the body is finished with a semi-matte finish to it that isn't rough on the hand, but doesn't mean that it's slipping around when gaming. I found it to be comfortable to use and I've not had any problems there. And because of the lightweight design to it, it really flicks around nice and easily on the mat and on your desk, and is easy to use and accurate during gaming sessions, so I've not had any problems there. And it's significantly lighter, as I've said, so if that's one thing that's bothered you about other mice, and this is one to turn to. The side buttons are also nice and large and easy to access. The one thing I will say is I have found that the body does pick up finger oils over time. So on the main buttons, for example, I've noticed oil off my fingers is appearing there. And that's one downside. But in terms of the comfort and the fit in my hand, it's been very nice. I also haven't found that it gets really slippery during intense gaming sessions. So if you're having a bit of a competitive game and you find that your hands are getting a bit sweaty, for example, I haven't found any issues with it slipping around there. So on the face of it, this is a really good mouse for the price, and with the specs included and the features of it and just the overall experience. The main downside for me has been when you have to plug in the mouse cable for charging purposes. It's just a pain. It's a horrid cable. It's heavy. It's not great. It ruins the experience. It's nowhere near as nice, and that's one big downside. Might sound like a stupid thing, but it's definitely one annoyance. One of the potentially most interesting things about this mouse comes when you download and use Razer Synapse software. Here you'll see a pop-up when you first launch it, which says dynamic sensitivity. This mouse actually allows you to adjust the DPI based on movement. So rather than having to rely on setting a specific DPI level, let's say 800 or 1200, by using the button on the underside, you can use this to actually automatically change DPI depending on how you move the mouse. You'll see the options here. Classic is continuous increase of sensitivity ratio with faster movement speed, similar to Windows. Natural is predictable cursor movement with a capped maximum sensitivity. And then the jumped one, which might be the most interesting, uses low sensitivity when moving slowly. So if you're taking aim with a sniper rifle, for example, and then instantly shifts to higher sensitivity during quick flicks. This is ideal for FPS players who have a super low sensitivity while being able to execute really fast turns. So if you want to do 360 no-scope, for example, or just swing your aim around in a tank or in anything else, then you can use this. This is pretty interesting. I've not really seen this before with other Razer mice. So that's one thing that you have to do from Synapse, and you can see it here under the Advanced tab. So you have to turn it on because it's off by default. So you turn it on, and then you have Classic, Natural, and Jump, and you can see a different graph for how this works, and you can actually see it reacting as well based on what you're doing. So the graph actually manipulates and moves based on what the DPI is. So you can see if I'm slowly moving the mouse, it's down there, but then if you speed up, it goes higher, so it's actually speeding up. So rather than having this curve here where it changes quite slowly, you can do this jump one where it basically very quickly moves. So you want to do precise movements and then flick all the way up to something faster. You can do that here. Pretty neat. So what's that experience like then? Well, as an old man playing blue-collar Tarkov, I've found that it allows me to kill bots a little bit faster, or at least it is pretty responsive to it. I actually headshot 3 bot PMCs in this game, so I was feeling pretty smug with myself. But it is easy to flick around really quickly, and obviously with a game like Tarkov, you have to be moving slowly and aiming carefully sometimes, checking your corners, and then quickly flicking around to shoot a bot that snuck up behind you. Or if you're terrible with the audio cues or ran past a couple of guys and didn't even notice, you can easily flick back around and finish them off. So all told, a pretty good mouse for the money and well worth considering. Stick around now to hear a sound test without me waffling. This has been the Provoked Prawn. Thanks for watching. You've made it right to the end of the video, you brilliant legend you. If you've enjoyed it, click that subscribe button, give me a thumbs up, and drop me a comment down below if you've got any questions. If you really enjoyed it, consider joining the channel and see the benefits of doing so. Check out these other videos, you might well find them interesting or useful, and most importantly, have a great life.